former CBI chief is now apparently under investigation by the CBI itself for his alleged role in the coal scam. Can you elaborate on what that's about?
Well, we all know what the coal scam is.
Yes.
The coal scam was one of the major scams that took place during the Congress party regime in India.
Yes.
The CBI chief, Ajit has been called by the CBI for an investigation because it is being alleged that Sinha, when he was the CBI chief, tried to tinker around with the investigation of the coal scam, probably to favor somebody.
Okay.
Now, only a detailed investigation will reveal whether Sinha actually did it or he did not do it. That's another thing. But there are other issues here. The government, rather than just targeting Sinha or any other officer, should try and look at the system itself, investigate the system that allows the chiefs of certain departments and top bureaucrats and top police officers to tinker around with things, One of the biggest reasons for this is that officials here, once they get into the senior services like the IAS or the IPS, they become larger than life. And they have the state's resources at their disposal, the government's resources at their disposal, the government machinery at their disposal.
Okay.
Now this gives them extra constitutional power. Extra constitutional power means that they have now the power to exceed their brief, because their juniors are willing to do anything to please their bosses. They will leave no stone unturned to please their bosses, as they say. Now once this happens, is that in theory a government official should not have more rights and more power and more access to the systems and the facilities that are available in the country than a private citizen.
Right.
And I think that's the way it operates in the USA or in Europe, where you have a minister riding to a press conference on a bicycle.
Yes.
But here they have gun-toting commandos and 10 cars, and then only then are they considered ministers.
Yeah, it's very showy. It's rather bizarre.
So, but you see, this is what it's all about. The government needs to investigate the system, because what happens is when you have junior officials who are willing to follow any order you issue, then you can tinker around with a lot of things. I mean, a senior bureaucrat could easily frame Korff and Ajit Chak tomorrow in any case, if he wants to, because his juniors will be willing to cross the line and fabricate a false case against anybody. Or send a false notice or a false tax notice or whatever,
Yeah.
Now this is dangerous. This trend has to be curbed in the government. Once this trend is curbed, no senior official will have the courage to try and tinker around with anything.
Well, it boils down to creating a system of checks and balances and processes that are independent and function irregardless of who is in power.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
and
anybody trying to violate that system should immediately come under suspicion.
Right.
So the moment that happens, people will back off. And if you remember, if you give an order that should not be carried out, then the junior official should not turn around and say, if he's questioned, that I was following orders.
Right.
Do you have anything to say about this?
Well, it's just that as a Westerner here, there's a lot of checks and balances that are not in place. Take the issue of a police officer giving a ticket, okay? I have witnessed bribes, and I get out of the car and I ask the officer what the problem is. The moment they see me, they say, never mind, go on. I remember one time there was a taxi driver who was wearing his uniform, and the policeman tried to give him a ticket for not wearing his uniform.
That's disgusting, actually.
It is.
This is what misuse of official position is all about.
Right.
And it's because the people in India don't complain that people get encouraged to misuse their position. So the entire system is rotten from top to bottom. And now, I have been to an office in Uttar Pradesh, and we had this junior PCS officer walk into his cabin, and the entire staff of the office came, and you will not believe what they did. They came and touched his feet.
Okay.
And I'm talking about a class 2 official, I'm not even talking about a class 1 IS officer. So can you imagine the kind of treatment an IS officer would be getting or an IPS officer would be getting from his junior staff in this country? Obviously it goes into their head.
Yeah. Well, as a Westerner, nobody touches their feet. In fact, we find feet are full of germs. We don't touch people's feet. In the old biblical texts, thousands of years ago, you have references to people washing Jesus' feet because they thought he was holy or a priest or whatever. But just the idea that you touch somebody's feet, I mean, we're all human beings. We're all supposed to be equal under the laws. And in a country like India, which says it's secular, hello, that's the key word, you can't do things like that, but yet they do. And
well, it's not just a question of secularism. I think it's a question of setting up a system where if anybody comes and touches his boss's feet, then the guy should be fired, period.
well, just
Or
the
should
very,
be taken as something adverse against him, so people will stop doing it. You see, in a system where people are not willing to follow, I mean, since there are no rules and checks and balances here, then maybe you need to set up rules for the way officers conduct themselves and the way their junior staff conducts itself inside the government office.
yeah, because recently you commented on one officer being busted for having his people under him shine his shoes.
Yeah, there have been cases of people shining shoes of ministers, people shining shoes of officers, people carrying officers on their shoulders across flooded streets. I mean, this kind of behavior is just not on in a modern democracy. And why should an officer or a minister be treated as a VIP and get special security and special cars? I mean, a minister in Europe drives a bicycle.
Well, I understand if you need legitimate security, but what shouldn't happen is to elevate them so that they're some sort of superhuman. They're not. We're all human beings. We're all the same. They put their pants on one leg at a time, just like you and I do. There's no difference.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.